The rain could turn heavy at times, especially later. Heavy rain is expected across southern Wales this evening, leading to the risk of flooding. Strong southerly winds continuing, but on the mild side. A cloudy evening across the Midlands with an increasing risk of rain, the wind also picking up for many. Mild for the time of year with temperatures generally still in double figures. A wet end to the day across northern England as heavy bursts of rain continue to move in from the west. Winds picking up, these brisk over the hills, temperatures around 10 degrees Celsius. Further heavy rain for southern parts of Scotland in particular through this evening, perhaps a few drier interludes at times. Windy for all with temperatures around 10 degrees Celsius. Turning drier across Northern Ireland this evening as the rain clears east, a few heavy showers moving in from the west, which could be accompanied by further strong and gusty winds. The wind and rain will continue to sweep eastwards overnight with blustery showers following into the northwest. A mild night for most. And that is how the weather is shaping up overnight into tomorrow morning.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store. You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Monday to Thursday, 10 till 12, on TV, on radio and online.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know. The latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
On GB News TV and on radio. Tonight on the programme, plenty of people have had to change their weekend plans because of train strikes today, and more disruption is planned over Christmas. We'll be talking about the problems these strikes can cause. If you've been to the supermarket this weekend, you may have noticed a severe shortage of eggs. We'll be asking why some shops are rationing such a staple of our diet. A hit streaming TV show called Ancient Apocalypse has been branded the most dangerous show on Netflix. We'll be asking later if that's really the case. Here to help me answer that and the other questions of the day, tonight's panellists, Ingrid Tarrant and Emma Webb, who are good friends of the show and require no further introduction. But first, an update on the latest news from Aaron Armstrong.
Thank you very much, Neil. It is a minute past 6. I'm Aaron Armstrong in the GB newsroom. The head of the London Fire Brigade says firefighters face being sacked if they're found to have bullied colleagues or been racist, misogynistic or homophobic. Andy Rowe has promised a zero-tolerance approach after an independent review into the culture within the service. The report revealed accounts from a black firefighter who had a noose placed by his locker, women being groped and people having their helmets filled with urine. The review was commissioned after a trainee firefighter took his own life in 2020.
We're going to conduct a 5-year case review, so we look back across all those cases, those terrible behaviours, those examples of bullying and harassment which have been considered before in AFB, and put them back through that externally accredited process, and I do expect some people to be dismissed as a result. We will become the first service in the country to wear body-worn video cameras to ensure both the safety of our own staff and to reassure the public. So those are examples of what we're doing immediately.
A woman's died and around 10 people are missing after heavy rainfall triggered landslides on the southern Italian island of Ischia this morning. The muddy path cut through a port town, collapsing buildings and sweeping cars into the sea. Dozens of people are reportedly stranded inside homes and hotels as rescuers continue to search for victims. Meanwhile, yellow weather warnings are in place for large parts of the UK. A warning by the Met Office for rain and strong winds is affecting southern England, Wales and Scotland. The warnings in Wales and England will remain in place until 3 a.m. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has hosted a food security summit with the Prime Ministers of Belgium, Poland and Lithuania and the President of Hungary. Zelensky says approximately 6 million people are without electricity in Ukraine following a series of Russian attacks on the country's infrastructure this week. The mayor of Ukraine, Vitaly Klitschko, in fact the mayor of Kyiv, Vitaly Klitschko claims around 70% of households in the capital still have no power. It comes as the United Nations calls for humanitarian aid for people in Ukraine who've been left without power following those Russian missile attacks. Meanwhile, British military intelligence says Russia's removing nuclear warheads from old cruise missiles before using them on attacks in Ukraine. The MOD says the move highlights Moscow's low stock of long-range missiles. The England manager Gareth Southgate has played down boos from disappointed fans following their draw with the United States in the World Cup last night. It means England missed out on the chance to guarantee their place in the last 16. As supporters at a fan zone in South London appeared a little unhappy. The result, some cups and drinks flying around the place. England will face Wales next. Wales need a win to keep up their chances of making the knockout stages. The former England manager Sam Allardyce, though, says he's still hopeful England can win the tournament.
There's enough experience in the backroom staff, the manager. There's enough experience in the squad now, having gone through 2 tournaments, that they've got the tools to win this competition. But Gareth needs to use the squad to its full potential, and that means, for me, quite a few changes for the next game.
The former Scotland Rugby Union international and British and Irish Lion, Doddy Weir, has died at the age of 52. Weir was diagnosed with motor neuron disease in December 2016. He won 61 caps for his country and was selected for the successful Lions tour to South Africa in 1997. Weir used his profile to raise awareness of the condition and to generate funds through his charity foundation. TV online and DAB Plus radio, this is GB News. And now it's back to Neil Oliver Live.
People write to me every day to tell me they fear the future. People from all over the world, all ages, all walks of life. I say this, we should not be afraid. If anyone should be afraid, it's our government, the whole of Parliament, the state and the establishment. They should be afraid because they are in the wrong, doing wrong things and behaving unforgivably. You can tell they are afraid by the way they keep doing more and more, faster and faster, to make the people poor, cold and hungry, also demoralised, anxious and fearful about the present, never mind the future. The fear felt by people around the world is the deliberate consequence of the actions of so-called leaders all across the West and beyond. I say again, we should not be afraid. Those plotting and working against us, against our interests, both as individuals and as sovereign states, have no power and no money other than that which we, the people, grant them. They're supposed to use that power and money to protect us, to keep us free, and to provide opportunities for those hard-working, free people to make happy and successful lives for themselves. Instead, they're working night and day to have us welcome a state of being that is nothing less than digital enslavement. Many of the people who contact me ask, what should we do? How can we fight back? I think about the answers to those questions all the time. Right now, I wonder what would happen if those who are cold in their homes, millions of people, just turned on their heating and turned off their direct debits and standing orders. What would happen if, when the bills came, we all just agreed to toss them on the fire, all of us together? What would happen if millions of us, peacefully acting as one, just stood together in quiet defiance? I could be wrong, but I don't think there's enough cells in the prisons, enough judges to hear the cases. If the system wasn't already broken by them, such actions would break it. What would happen if we all withdrew our money from the banks on the same day? What would happen if we all asked, as we are entitled to, for the cash? The banks don't have the money to meet all those demands, and so presumably they would close their doors. Then what? Would their inability to pay out all that cash be evidence of the fraud that is fiat money? I wonder. More and more strikes are happening. Rail workers, teachers and university lecturers, nurses next. What about the self-employed who were abandoned for the last 2 years? They can't strike. What would happen if they withheld their taxes all at the same time? I wonder. I don't have the answers to all of the questions, but I know this much. Even just asking them, airing the thoughts, should make the government, the state, the establishment sit up and pay attention. I've said it before and I'll say it again. The social contract, that notion by which we surrender power to the state in return for services and safety, is beyond broken. They broke it, not us. Successive governments, not just the present bunch of cardboard cutouts, have, over decades, knowingly and deliberately betrayed every aspect of that contract. It is null and void, and we, the blameless party, are no longer bound by its conditions. We, the people, the sovereign people of this country, don't just hold the power, we are the power. We loan some of it, a short-term loan, to governments, and those governments are supposed to serve us, do our bidding, never the other way round. We tell them what to do. Hundreds of years' worth of governments have quietly and secretively presided over a financial system that is no more than state-sanctioned fraud. Power to create money out of thin air was put in the hands of an entirely private, unelected, unaccountable business, and this power has been abused to make a tiny group unimaginably rich by enslaving all of us with debt. That system is now on the point of collapse. The West is bankrupt, and governments and bankers are scrabbling to solve a problem. How to subtract every last shekel from the people while still having a handful of wealthy bankers and their enablers left over. Britain has no functioning border against the rest of the world. Hundreds are arriving in this country every day and night, many ferried across the Channel by agencies paid for by British taxpayers. British people have to wait longer for health and social care and accommodation to make way for economic migrants with their eyes on a soft touch, who have paid illegal gangs thousands of pounds a head to get here. They send their luggage on ahead and collect it at their hotels. We are at the back of the queue while anyone else from anywhere else is looked after hand and foot. And always the loudest calls are not for stopping it, but for more money and faster processing. I wonder if the illegal immigration isn't just convenient for the state, softening up the citizens for a supposed solution, like digital ID, perhaps, and then borders open once and for all. I wonder. The British people are no longer kept safe by the police force they pay for. Burglaries of properties and assaults on the person are barely investigated, while officers prioritise thought crimes on social media. Uncounted thousands of little girls are abandoned to organised gangs of rapists up and down the country because the state turned a blind eye to the relentless raping of children rather than ruffle community feathers. 1/10 of the population is on the waiting list for treatment by the NHS. The National Health Service is not keeping the nation healthy. All this about free at the point of the delivery is about as much use as a magic spell. You can call a lunch a free lunch, but you'll still be left hungry if you can't get into the restaurant. So-called free steaks won't fill you up if you have to wait so long in the queue you starve to death in the meantime. Free becomes another word for something you've heard about but can't have. I say again though, we have nothing to fear, not if we decide to be unafraid. In many ways the worst has already happened. We've been shown where we stand in the eyes of the state, which is beneath their contempt. But history tells us we should never underestimate the power of the many. Just over 100 years ago, during World War I, thousands of workers were pulled into the city of Glasgow to work in the munitions factories. At that time, there wasn't a single council house or flat in the whole of Britain. Private landlords owned 100% of homes for rent. They could and did raise rents as often as they wanted. Tenants either paid up or were evicted. In February 1915, landlords across the city told tenants their rents were going up by as much as 25%. This was against a backdrop of the steeply rising cost of living generally, food scarcity and the rest. There was a war to win, remember, and sacrifices were expected from the people if the enemy was to be defeated. In the case of many homes, the man of the house was away fighting in the war, leaving just women and children. Into this crisis for poor people stepped Mary Barber, an ordinary Glasgow woman with 2 children. She and others realised their only hope lay in sticking together. A mass non-payment campaign got underway. Arrears built up, and soon sheriff's officers were turning up to demand back rent or to evict non-payers. But whenever anyone got wind of an eviction, hundreds of women would descend on the address and block the entrance to the home. A Glasgow MP, Willie Reid, described a typical incident. Quote, "A soldier's wife in Parkhead had an eviction notice served on her with a warning that if she failed to vacate her house by 12 noon, the sheriff's officer would call to enforce it. The strike committee got busy. They instructed every mother in the district with a young child to be there for 11 a.m. on D-Day, complete with prams. Long before noon, the close and street were packed with prams, and every pram had at least one youngster in it. No raiding party could have got near the house. Moreover, the men of Parkhead Forge and other works in the district decided to down tools at 11:30 a.m. and lend a hand if necessary. People began to talk about Mary Barber's army. On the 17th of November, 18 tenants appeared in court for eviction. Tens of thousands of Glasgow people lined the streets outside. In the end, on the 25th of November 1915, rents were frozen at pre-war levels. The Increase of Rent and Mortgage Interest Act 1915 was passed, and some elements of it remained in force as late as 1989. I wonder what would happen if all of us opposed to what is going on now came together like those Glasgow women of 1915 and just said no. I wonder. When thinking about that time, I'm reminded of real leaders. I've been talking again this week about Ernest Shackleton, who, when all seemed lost, his ship sunk beneath the Antarctic ice and with nothing but flimsy tents, 3 little boats and 28 men trapped on the pack ice and depending on him for life itself, he said, "Well, now we'll go home." Our so-called leaders tell us our lives must be filled with hardship while they warm themselves in centrally heated homes paid for with our taxes and look forward to Christmas parties and food and drink and decorations paid for by all of us. That's not leadership, that's an abusive relationship. Shackleton put himself through every hardship he expected his men to endure. He did it first and for longest. What he asked of them, he did too. He said they should leave behind on the ice anything that would not help keep them alive. So saying, he walked to a hole in that ice and dropped in his gold watch and cigarette case to the bottom of the ocean. He led from the front every step of the way and over nearly 1,000 miles of the cruelest sea on earth. And in the end, he got every man home. They called him the boss. He cared not a jot for the comforts of home. Back home once more, he wrote, "We had pierced the veneer of outside things. We had suffered, starved and triumphed, grovelled down and grasped at glory, grown bigger in the bigness of the whole." He was a leader who saw that it was shared endeavour and shared striving that made all else possible. Our leaders would pick our pockets for any gold watches and valuables before climbing aboard their private jets and flying home, leaving us behind on the melting ice. I say we owe them nothing, not our loyalty and not our obedience. If we continue to comply, we build our own prison around ourselves for their benefit. They've promised us the earth while stealing it from us, raping and pillaging its resources only for their own enrichment. I say again, there's nothing to fear if we have each other. Here's the thing, if we set a course for ourselves and back each other every step of the way, we will cross this ocean of darkness together, all the way to where we want to be. All of that's my opinion, of course, and you're free to disagree. Keep your tweets and emails coming all through the show. You can email gbviews@gbnews.uk, and you can tweet me as well @gbnews, and I'll try to get to your comments later in the show if there's time. Joining me throughout the show this evening, I am delighted to welcome commentator and broadcaster Emma Webb and TV personality and commentator Ingrid Tarrant. Good to see you both.
Good to be here.
That monologue was brilliant. Powerful. That's fighting talk. I want you to lead the crusade, and I'm right behind you.
Oh, good. Good.
You are so right with this. So bang on.
Is the social contract broken?
Oh, completely. Yeah. We don't have leaders. This is what you said. They're cardboard cutouts. They're doing nothing. There's no common sense anymore. It's an unusual thing to have common sense. They're being... I don't know what they are. They are listening to us, but then whoever shouts loudest, they listen to the next time. So they keep flip-flopping between different opinions because they don't have a real opinion of their own. They're not leaders. They're not like Shackleton. Come on, off we go. We're going to sort this out. We are in a sinking ship. You've got to lead us out of this.
Oh, good grief.
No pressure, Neil.
Emma, if they're not holding up their end of the social contract, should we?
Well, you know, I think the way that you phrased it when you said that we're in an abusive relationship with the government, and I think we saw that over COVID more than any other time. What it seems to me is that in relational terms, it's possessive. They feel that they own us, and under that circumstance, I think the way that we push back, because obviously when we're talking about the social contract, it's a very specific understanding of how the individual relates to the state. I think that actually the contract is the Burkean one between the unborn, the living and the dead. I think we need to return back to that model, and we need to remember that, as you emphasised there perfectly, we are free people, and the power actually belongs to us and not to them. And so I think we need to assert ourselves quite clearly against this possessive relationship, this possessive attitude that the government has developed towards us, where they seem to think that they own us, they own our bodies, they own our money. The way that the current fiscal statement, I mean, aside from it being fundamentally unconservative, this affects people from the very top to the very bottom. They are taking people's hard-earned money at a time when they need it most. And so I think in so many ways, you summed it up perfectly. The situation, the contract has been completely broken. I don't know the best way out of this situation.
Well, they're giving away money, though.
Passive non-compliance. What about passive resistance? What about just saying no? Not paying bills to the energy companies.
The thing is, we are saying no in many ways. Are we not saying no, and have we not been saying no a very, very long time, to funding all the illegal immigrants? You know, at a time when we need to help and support our own country. Charity begins at home. They're not doing anything. They're bringing in diseases. And actually, let's just get this in perspective. It costs, on average, £5,000 per illegal immigrant to pay all the people in the process of coming here. Where do they get the money from? It's from drugs, it's from trafficking, maybe theft. I can't say everybody, but it's, you know, for these people that are supposed to be very, very poor, and they're coming in with their new trainers and their fancy phones and all their watches and blah, blah, having already paid this amount of money. So we've been saying this, we've been shouting about this for a very long time, and nothing's happening. So what does it take? I mean, what you're saying is, like, let's just down tools, let's burn the bills, let's not pay our taxes. Then that really is fighting talk. We're fighting with not just sort of like, you know, sort of like our mouths and whatever. I think we can't be passive. I think we've got to be completely aggressive on this.
Well, you said yourself that the government will listen to the last person that spoke the loudest. And so I think one thing that people should do, striking, obviously, as we've seen, is very disruptive to everybody's lives and hurts the economy, so it hurts all of us. But what if everybody were to go out into the streets and peacefully protest? I think that they would actually listen to a real protest movement.
It's happening everywhere else in Europe, and we're not seeing it on most of the news.
And I think that this is, you know, you you touched on this as well. This is not just about our politics. It's not just about our government. It's also about our institutions. The police are not policing. All of the institutions of society seem to have forgotten what they're there to do. I won't say who this is in relation to, but I know of somebody who had a crime committed against them over the last couple of days, and within 24 hours, the police said that they closed the case. So we have a situation now where all of, the councils are taking all of this money, but they're full of dead wood, paying themselves enormous salaries. You just have to look at the Taxpayers Alliance annual rich list to see that that is the case. And as you say, we've been shouting loud enough for long enough and nobody's listening to us. But I think we do need to be careful that in the situation that is clearly becoming more and more desperate and the system being broken in the way that it is, that any action that is taken is responsible, sensible action and not crazy utopian revolutionary activity.
Exactly. But in a civilised, in a very civilised way that people would understand.
Got to get to a break, after which more travel disruption today for train passengers and further strikes planned for December. Are we facing a winter of discontent? I'll be discussing that prospect in just a couple of minutes.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online. Across England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Friday and Sunday night from 9, it's Mark Dolan Tonight.
We're on the same page again. There's something weird happening.
Let Ian finish. Don't be such a cranky. That mini budget was the tip of the iceberg.
And on Saturday, my show just got bigger. From 8, it's Mark Dolan's Saturday Night In.
You can't govern a country if you can't speak. Stop talking.
My God, we reached the end. I've never been early in my life. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, We're
on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and tune-in apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
And it's about standards and public life. No, I'll tell you what's hypocrisy, Narinda.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin.
We believe in the UK.
No bias, no censorship.
It just doesn't make sense to me. He wasn't doing his job as Chancellor.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton Tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News.
Welcome back to Neil Oliver Live. A wave of strikes by workers in 7 different industries promises a winter of discontent for British people. Rail workers and bus drivers, doctors and nurses, the Royal Mail, delivery drivers, teachers and university lecturers, civil servants and brewers are all taking or promising industrial action. Joining me now to discuss the impact of all of this on the wider population in the run-up to Christmas and beyond is Katie Boots, head of the Maidstone East, West and Snodland Commuters Group. Good evening to you. Thank you for joining us.
Good evening, Neil.
Tell me, how hard, for example, are commuters being hit in your area?
Very hard. I mean, we don't have a very good rail company as it is, always cancelling trains for various reasons. The train strikes are coming at a time where our local train company are putting on new services to London Bridge. And that week, none of us will be able to get into London because of the train strikes.
What is the impact then on other businesses in the run-up to Christmas? Hospitality, retail, entertainment and so on. What are you hearing? What are you seeing?
Oh, well, that week, the week of the train strike is when, my company Christmas party is being held on the 16th. None of us will probably be able to go because we won't be able to get home. So all of these venues have been booked, needing the money since lockdown as well. companies may have to cancel. All the businesses in the city, I work in the City of London, all the businesses around there just about getting back on their feet after lockdown will be severely penalised by this strike, because the commuters won't be there to buy the coffee, the wine in the wine bars, the beer, etc.
Is there a sense, I do wonder if all of those industries that are striking or are proposing to strike, if all of the workers actually want to strike, or if they're just being driven into this situation. Do you get a sense, from others around you that they appreciate the problems that people are having, that those workers are having, but that striking in the run up to Christmas, especially sacred cows like doctors and nurses, teachers, is perhaps something very painful to inflict on people in this particular time of crisis?
I mean, my daughter is a nurse and she works in central London, and she feels under pressure to go on strike, I believe. Well, she didn't vote for strike action, but she is feeling the pressure to go out on strike. And again, it's terrible when nurses, she works in a children's ward, and absolutely she probably won't be able to work on strike days because of that reason. And at the moment, the other situation is the train strike is affecting her getting to work. She had to drive into central London yesterday evening, pay the congestion charges, the car parking charges, and then work a 13-hour shift and then come back and drive all that way back to Maidstone in Kent, which is about 30 miles. Again, the NHS have offered them accommodation in the centre of London, but she doesn't feel safe to stay there with other issues, including, the amount of potential immigrants that are staying in these hotels, and she doesn't want to stay in them.
Emma, what are you making of it? When at this time, after the 2 years that we've been through, that now this has entered the equation as well.
I think it's deeply inconsiderate. I think that what they're doing is they're hurting the public and holding the public ransom in order to get the companies to meet demands that I think under the circumstances, and I know this is going to be very unpopular to say, I think under the circumstances are actually quite greedy, because what they're doing is they're fundamentally harming the economy. As your guest mentioned there are loads of companies that are not going to be able to, have customers on those days, pubs that are struggling, the busiest time of the year, people who aren't going to be able to get home to see loved ones, all sorts of chaos that they're creating. And they are just holding the public to ransom. And I think, again, as was just mentioned there, that there will be people who don't want to go on strike. They want to go to work. But these unions, as per the normal behaviour of unions, behaving like bully boys, basically forcing people into striking. And actually, ultimately, it hurts all of us, because it also hurts the ability of those companies and the ability of the government, the taxpayer, to pay those people. So we're all struggling right now, and we're constantly being told, as you said in your monologue, Neil, we're constantly being told that we have to suffer more. We have to suffer more for the greater good. But ultimately, they're inflicting suffering on us at a time when everybody is really having to pull their belts in.
Ingrid, it's just more uncertainty, isn't it? If you're planning a journey to see family, or if you travel every day on the trains to get to work or to get to school, more and more elements seem to be conspiring to just create this constant uncertainty about everything.
Yes, uncertainty about it. The only thing we're certain of are the days they're going to strike. But the rest of it is absolute chaos. It throws everything into complete chaos. What is so completely short-sighted? Well, it is greed, I agree with you, because the minimum wage is about 40,000, then 80 to 120,000 a year is kind of fairly standard. Probably somebody will shout at me and say that I'm completely wrong, but that's what I've read. But it's this 8-day strike is going to cost £670 million. And they are going to lose that's to the country, and they're going to lose in lost revenue, something like 350 million, which is extraordinary, actually.
It's completely counterproductive.
So it is completely, they are killing their own industry by doing this. Also, they don't get paid while they're on strike, apart from if they weren't working that day anyway. And you think, well, hello, wake up, be sensible, because you're going to kill the job that provides your overheads, your money, your lifestyle by doing this. And I think this bully boy tactics is absolutely right, because I remember back in the day, you know, with all the strikes and the unions. I mean, Mike Lynch is a very, very good speaker. He comes across very well. He's sort of like, I'm sure he makes a lot of sense to the ASLEF, you know, and all that sort of thing. But they have got to be a little bit, they've got to wake up and work this one out for themselves. And I hope that they've got bloody tough wives that are sitting at home saying, you get out to work and let's put this in perspective, because that's what a pound of potatoes costs. Because women are like that, aren't they? It's like that one from Bosomy, Mary Barber, you know, that you were talking about earlier.
Yeah, brilliant, Mary Barber. Katie, do you think all these industries, all these businesses are losing the people's sympathy? And is it just causing a greater degree of us fighting amongst ourselves, I suppose?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, when I'm on the train, obviously I'm a commuter, when I'm on the train, there are people, you know, it's all very well me saying, oh, I can't go to my Christmas party, but there are people struggling to get up there for hospital appointments, NHS appointments. You know, that one station that my train stops at, a lot of blind people get on with guide dogs going to hospital appointments at Moorfields and can't get there. And it's just not, it's unacceptable. It's, you know, I just cannot, we cannot have people not able to go to hospital because they can't get on the train. People may say, well, drive up there, but you can't, the congestion charges, the car parking, and, you know, my daughter's pretty much, you know, just a newly qualified nurse. She's on about 30,000 a year, I guess. But the train drivers and train staff, and far more than that, yet she's the one who's having to pay out car parking, congestion charges, and just to get to work and do a 13-hour shift and look after sick children.
Particularly cruel time to do it as well in the run-up to Christmas. You know, when a lot of these businesses, like hospitality, like entertainment, are trying to recover some lost ground from, you know, from the last 2 years of incessant disruption and all the rest, that to find their businesses compromised yet again.
When you walk around the City of London, it's not how it used to be. There's lots of places shut, pubs, restaurants have been shut, and they're just about getting back on their feet again. And actually, you know, my company, you know, they're very flexible. They allow us to work from home, but we're getting into a situation now where we're quite enjoying seeing each other again and connecting with each other. And now we're back to where we were in lockdown, where we're all working from home again.
Back to where we were. Katie Boots, head of the Maidstone, East West and Snodland Commuters Group, thank you for your contribution this evening. I have to get to another break, and then we'll be finding out why some supermarkets have had to start rationing eggs as the UK faces a shortage of one of our food staples. See you shortly.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Deebs & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store. You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Monday to Thursday, 10 till 12, on TV, on radio and online.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel, And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512.
Virgin Media Channel 604.
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview Channel 236. And YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere. Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back once more to Neil Oliver Live. Supermarkets say they have to ration the number of eggs being sold to customers in the face of claims of nationwide shortage and the impact of bird flu. But egg farmers blame the supermarkets for paying them so little for their product that many producers have paused production or quit the industry altogether. Farmers say their rising costs, the price of feed and young chickens coupled with skyrocketing energy costs, are not being reflected in the prices offered by the supermarkets. And industry insiders say eggs, so to speak, are the tip of the iceberg and that other food shortages lie ahead for some of the same reasons. I'm joined now by the farmer and former Conservative MP, Neil Parish. Hello, Neil, how are you?
Fine, thank you. Nice to see you, Neil. My wife and I very much enjoy your history on the Vikings and taking us around Scotland. So nice to see you.
Oh, a blast from the past. Lovely, thank you. Now, to the matter in hand, though, who's to blame for all of this, Neil?
Yes, you've seen that the supermarkets and retailers are trying to blame bird flu. Now, bird flu has claimed a few of the poultry, but most of the reduction, about from 43 million down to 38 million, is all to do with the fact that the farmers can't afford to keep them. And, you know, we've had the problem with the Russians invading Ukraine. Price of wheat has rocketed. So the feed price has gone up by nearly a half. And of course, they reckon that it's costing 45 pence a dozen more to produce the eggs, and retailers have offered them 9 pence. So basically, farmers are just reducing the number of hens they're keeping. Hence, we've got less eggs. And of course, we produce 75% of our eggs now and more are free range in this country. Very high quality, good eggs. And of course, what the supermarkets are now doing, some of them, Sainsbury's, are getting them from Italy. And of course, the quality is not so good, nor is the animal welfare is good. So, you know, I think that retailers really must recognise the cost it is of production. Otherwise, you know, there isn't a shortage of eggs, or there wouldn't be if they paid the right price for them.
Can no third party mediate in a situation like this? You know, it sounds as though the supermarkets have all the clout.
To a degree, because there is, you know, but a lot of them are locked into contracts, and that, you know, and fair enough, contracts go up and down. But of course, what you can't do is locking farmers into a contract which is below the cost of production, because in the end, the farmers can't actually produce them, and so they won't keep the hens. So it's a real issue where I think, you know, NFU, others, Poultry Board, are all working hard to try and get that price up. But I think consumers can actually help by saying, you know, by listening, you like to hear tonight to GB News, also when they're going into the supermarkets, to actually say to those retailers, you know, I believe if you paid enough for those eggs, we'd have plenty of good quality eggs that we can produce in this country. And I think that's the issue now, to make sure, and I think retailers will start to listen now. But of course, they've waited too long, really, before taking the industry seriously and starting to up the price, because the price is going up in the shops, but it's not going up a great deal to the producer. And so they've got a lot more to do. Tesco's has now said they will, you know, have eggs only from the UK. Well, they will need to pay more for them, the same with the other retailers.
Yeah, absolutely. Is this a new problem, or is this, we're talking about eggs specifically at the moment, but is this the product of something deeper rooted and longer running in terms of an almost what it sounds like exploitative relationship between the big supermarkets and the farmers and other producers?
Yes, you again, Neil, exactly right. Because what happened when I was sort of in Parliament, I had a lot to do with the pig industry, and I was famously, turned up in Pig World because I'd actually been championing the cause for the pig producer. Because again, the supermarkets were keeping the prices down, the processors weren't helping either, and the pig farmer was having to pay it was costing him about £40 a pig more to produce the pig and what they were getting for it. And it's feed costs, energy costs, a little bit very similar in a way to the poultry industry, because you see a pig and a hen and poultry eat cereals, and basically everything farmers say comes out of a bag. You can't really put them out to graze. I mean, the chickens go out to free range. They get a little bit of nutrient from the grass and others, but most of it comes through grain. And so therefore, anything that's got to be produced with high cost feed, then the retailers do have to pay the price for it. And consumers quite rightly demand very high animal welfare standards. That costs money as well. And so energy, again, like I said, really high. So it's been, and we've got to really watch this. They might try to do the same with the dairy industry on the milk price. And I think because we've got a very efficient, good farming industry in this country. And I know farmers will always moan they never get paid enough. But on this occasion, they're not getting paid as the cost of production. And that's got to be wrong.
Ingrid, it seems to me that this is part of a longer, much more painful story about the way in which the farming industry is being overlooked, neglected, mistreated. When after all, it's the stuff of life, and we see it in the Netherlands, we see it in other European countries. This pincer movement that seems to be moving around the farming industry and farmland to one way and another by 1,000 cuts to see that industry bleed.
Yeah, you can. It is. It's kind of. It's almost insidious the way that it's actually coming. Because going back to as Neil was saying, with the pig farmers going back ages and ages ago. Actually, I've kind of forgot that. But the other thing that I find, if you take back, and maybe I'm now being a little bit of a conspiracy theorist, but when you think about the mad cows disease, and then there was all the culling of them. Now we've got the sort of like the bird flu thing, because that comes partly into this whole crisis with the eggs. And also you can't call them free range because they have to be outside for a certain length of time, and now they have to be kept inside for fear of it spreading and everything. And then, of course, you've got the overheads as well because of the heating of the chicken houses. But it's not fatal. I've read it, I've looked into this quite a lot, and it's not really fatal to human beings. And if you think about all the farmers that have these thousands of chickens that they're rearing for the eggs and for the actual meat, you don't hear about them dying, and they're in close proximity to them. I mean, I just think that there's so many little strands that are almost conspiring to destroy the farmer by actually terrifying us that all the things, all the meat and all the poultry and cattle is contaminated.
Bad for us or bad for the planet?
Yes, yeah.
Emma, do you think, should we as consumers circumvent the supermarkets? Should we be trying to get closer in every conceivable way to our food, the people who produce it and where it comes from, go around the back and just go straight to the farmers?
Absolutely. And actually, part of this story is that some farmers have decided that they want to sell their produce locally instead, and that's a way of them actually getting the money, the correct value for their product. Because it does, to me, from what I can see, it seems as if the supermarkets are essentially ripping the farmers off, that they're, as we've just heard, they're not even making ends meet. And so that's obviously something that is unsustainable, because farmers will simply fall out of the business and then we'll end up with shortages. That seems to me to be the fault of the supermarkets. We need something like fair trade that we have with other countries around the world to somehow, as you were saying, negotiate this relationship. But ultimately, I think that the solution long term is for us to try and eat as locally as possible. And if there are ways for people to go to farm shops in their local areas, not everybody lives in central London, and to try and find ways for farmers to maybe sell their produce more directly. Maybe an organisation needs to be created to step in to try and do that.
Neil Parish, Neil Parish, are you still with us there? Is that a solution? I mean, is there the foundation there of a movement of we the people, to get hand in hand with the farmers more directly, and not always go straight to the supermarket and add on their costs.
Yeah, I think we can sell more directly to the public, and some farmers have done that very successfully. But you will always have probably 85 to 90% of food actually bought in the large retailers. So I think where we have missed a trick in this country, I think, is we've never been very good at the sort of cooperative movements and actually sort of coming together to actually market the eggs, market the pigs, and so on, and the dairy product, to make sure that then the retailers have to negotiate with a very large organization. What they're inclined to do, the retailers, is pick off individual farmers, even if they are quite big. Their muscle, the retailers' muscle, is greater, if you like, than the farmers. So I think it's a combination. Let's get people eating more locally. It's a great idea. People are doing it, but we've also got to feed the nation. And people, especially in a cost of living crisis, people are very conscious of price. And if you take Lidl and Aldi, for instance, they will produce, good quality eggs, poultry, meat across the board, all British meat, and they actually pay the farmers well, but actually take less profit in the retail, chain. And that's where I think some of our other retailers need to actually learn, believe it or not, from German supermarkets who have, in Germany, you do have an actually better system of actually buying from the farmer, and the farmer actually getting a fair price. So I think farmers need to come together more, but I also think, the retailers, don't just blame bird flu, because like I said, I will repeat, we haven't lost that many birds through bird flu. Most of the drop in poultry production is because farmers can't afford to keep them. So I think, let's solve this problem by getting a decent price. Farmers will produce this great food. Let's have the good welfare, and let's make sure that as we have a good quality in this country, that people can get that in the supermarkets.
Neil Parish, an important topic. Thank you for that this evening. Moving on, though, after the break, myself and my panel will be discussing the TV show Ancient Apocalypse. It's been dubbed the most dangerous show on Netflix. But is that really the case? Back in 2.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
I think I've seen probably quite enough of Matt Hancock to last me a lifetime.
I'll also be getting to know you better, travelling to find out what you think about the politicians who are fighting for your vote.
They've got to get this country back on track.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. only on GB News, on TV, radio and online.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
My name's Tom Harwood, and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Welcome back to Neil Oliver Live. And now the documentary series Ancient Apocalypse is currently one of the most popular shows on Netflix, presented by writer Graham Hancock. He posits the theory that an advanced civilization existed 12,000 years ago before being wiped out by comets and flooding. Let's take a look.
The
Did you know that you were picking a fight with academia? Because there's a lot of people that just don't want to hear this.
You have been at the front of the line for decades, and you exposed me to a lot of these controversial ideas that have now been substantiated.
Well, I'm Graham Hancock. I don't claim to be an archaeologist or a scientist. I am a journalist, and the subject that I'm investigating is human prehistory.
Emma, you're both keen to talk about this particular subject. Emma, what is it that's appealing to you about
I
this series?
love this series. I don't binge watch things. I watched a number of the series episodes back to back. It's marvellous, and the reason why is because it's so exciting. And obviously, as was touched on there in that clip, he's pushing back against big archaeology, and he's proposing theories based on evidence that at a period many thousands of years ago, the Younger Dryas, at the end of the Ice Age, that before that period and around that time there may have been civilization. And each episode takes you to different places around the world looking at evidence of civilization maybe being older than the orthodox view that archaeologists take, and has come up against a whole host of pushback and actual censorship from the archaeological community. And it's just so exciting. And what I find so interesting about this, and there was a Guardian review, terrible review from The Guardian unexpectedly, suggesting that this TV show was actually dangerous. And it went so far as to imply that you could get from this to believing that 9/11 was an inside job and believing that Biden was elected with voter fraud. It was... this article was completely unhinged. And what I find so interesting about this is the mindset that it exposes, because it's not dissimilar from those who were unwilling to be sceptical to do with relating to the pandemic. And it's something to me that just seems so curious that people who care about archaeology and care about history wouldn't really want to know what might explain some of this unusual and anomalous evidence. And this series is just absolutely gripping.
Why shouldn't we have these conversations, Ingrid? I'm an archaeologist by training.
I know.
And I have my ideas about all sorts of aspects of ancient prehistory. I'm only fascinated by this journalist. He says he's a journalist and writer. He just has an obsessive interest in the subject, and I am only fascinated by what he has to say.
Of course, because everything is pieces of a jigsaw puzzle, and you understand more and more and more. We wouldn't have known a lot about what exists in history today if it hadn't been unearthed, and all the carbon dating and everything that we have. Brilliant. So isn't there a reason for that as well? So like, oh, great, now we really know. I have to go back to this chap, the writer in The Guardian. I mean, I'm going to name and shame him. Stuart Heritage. He called this preposterously boring. Unbelievable. But then I have to say something. He said, if Wright, talking about Graham Hancock, who I've got to talk about quite separately in a minute, changes everything we know about ourselves, then he's saying that kind of, oh, well, if he's right, it changes everything about what we know about ourselves. Well, let me go back, because I know about Graham Hancock from about 25 years ago. I'm so excited, and I didn't know this, so thank you for introducing this whole show. He wrote Fingerprints of the Gods. No, I read Keeper of Genesis. He wrote lots of other things with Robert Bowell. And I was really interested in the pyramids. And I didn't get a point in a quiz when they said, how old are the pyramids? Because the answer, as known at the time, was 2,500 BC. Actually, they proved that was wrong. It was 4,000 BC. So if he's right, it changes things. How we feel about ourselves with this. It changed history, and he was right.
It's only good to keep talking about these things, isn't it, Emma? I'm getting told about you we're running out of time on this, but it's only good to keep talking all the time about established fact, just in case there's more to learn.
Absolutely it is, and it's also about human wonder. We discover things because we're curious, because we're filled with wonder at the world. And what this documentary has done, and why I think it's so popular, is because it's opened our minds to the possibilities that maybe the established way of thinking about things isn't completely ironclad. ironclad. Maybe there is more out there to be discovered underneath the oceans from just at the end of the last ice age. And I think that is something that we need right now. We need curiosity and wonder and awe. It's human nature.
And it's the fact that if he's, you know, if the archaeological orthodoxy wants to challenge him, then fine, and that's appropriate, and that's the way it should.
But they won't even engage with him.
They won't engage, and they would rather just pretend he doesn't exist, and they would rather see the show taken off.
Or that dinosaurs never existed. It's actually saying
they'd
let's
rather
not
see the
talk
show
about
taken
dinosaurs.
off the air.
And not only will they not engage with him, they won't engage with the evidence either. And that's something that he talks about in the documentary. I would urge everybody to go and watch it. It's great.
Yes, and it's just, I am always open. I am always ambivalent or open-minded to the possibility that what I think is absolutely the case might not be. And I just think that's the...
fascinating.
It's the antidote to hubris.
It's the fun of it. It's the fun of it, the possibility. Got to go to a break. I'm so sorry about that. We'll talk about that for the rest of the night. After the break, we'll be meeting the 7-year-old Molly Turner, a true Great Britain who's been raising money for cancer and diabetes charities. Oh, yes, she has.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by 2 of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late-night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will. 7 nights a week at 11 p.m. on GB News.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of 2 wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
Welcome back to Neil Oliver Live. Still to come on the programme, I'll be speaking to a pair of researchers who have made a truly amazing fossil discovery in Wales. We'll be learning more about the CEO Sleep Out, in which business figures join the fight against homelessness by spending a night sleeping outside themselves. And after all our hard work this evening, myself, Ingrid and Emma are going to be treated to some festive mince pies to close the show. Yes, we are. Looking forward to that. All of that still to come, but first let's get the latest news headlines from Aaron Armstrong.
Yeah, thanks, Neil. It is 7 o'clock in the GB newsroom. The head of the London Fire Brigade says firefighters will be sacked if they're found to have bullied colleagues or been racist, misogynistic or homophobic. Andy Rose promised a zero-tolerance approach after an independent review found a toxic culture within the service. Accounts in the report ranged from a black firefighter who had a noose placed by his locker to women being groped and people having their helmets filled with urine. The review was commissioned after a trainee firefighter took his own life in 2020.
We're going to conduct a 5-year case review, so we look back across all those cases, those terrible behaviours, those examples of bullying and harassment, which have been considered before in AFB, and put them back through that externally accredited process. And I do expect some people to be dismissed as a result. We will become the first service in the country to wear body-worn video cameras to ensure both the safety of our own staff and to reassure the public. So those are examples of what we're doing immediately.
A woman's died and around 10 people are missing after heavy rainfall triggered landslides on the southern Italian island of Ischia earlier today. The mudslide cut through a port town, engulfing buildings and sweeping cars into the sea. Dozens of people are reportedly stranded inside homes and hotels. Rescuers are continuing to search for victims. Yellow weather warnings are in place for large parts of the UK, with heavy rain expected to cause flooding in Scotland. The Met Office says rain and strong winds are expected to affect southern England and Wales. The yellow alert in those parts of the country run until 3 a.m. tomorrow. Buses and trains will likely be affected. Former Scotland Rugby Union international and British and Irish Lion Doddy Weir has died at the age of 52. Weir was diagnosed with motor neuron disease in December 2016. He won 61 caps for his country and was selected for the successful Lions tour to South Africa in 1997. Weir used his profile to raise awareness of the condition and generated funds through his charity foundation. And the Flashdance and Fame singer Irene Cara has passed away at the age of 63. The Oscar and Grammy-winning musician, best known for singing and co-writing the song Flashdance, What a Feeling. Her publicist announced her passing at her Florida home on Twitter. The cause of her death remains unknown. On TV, online and DAB+ radio, this is GB News. And now it is back to Neil Oliver Live.
Thanks, Aaron. Welcome back to Neil Oliver Live. Now, I wait all week to have my spirits raised by meeting someone deserving of the title Great Britain. Amid all the doom and gloom, news of those who give of themselves in order to improve the lives of others, well, it's a tonic for troubled souls. This week's example is set by 7-year-old Molly Turner from Derby, who has had more than 2 feet of her long blonde hair cut off to raise hundreds of pounds for the Macmillan Cancer Unit at her local hospital and for Derby Diabetic Fund Club. And if that wasn't enough, Molly deals day by day with type 1 diabetes. I'm joined now by Molly Turner and her mum, Amy. Hello both, how are you?
Hi.
Look at you with your fabulous bobbed hairstyle. How are you liking your new look?
You like it? Yeah.
How long had it taken you to grow your hair as long as it used to be before you got it cut?
1.5 years.
Right, so all the way through lockdown and all of that, you were just quietly growing your hair.
Yeah, you were, weren't you?
And Molly, what have your friends said? Because they would have got properly used to you with your long hair. What did they say when you saw you with your new updated look?
Most of them were shocked, and they said, "What have you done with your hair?"
I bet. And that's a very good question, though. What have you done with your hair? What has it been sent to become?
A wig.
A wig.
Where's it going to? The Little Princess Trust.
Right. So your hair is now going to help someone else.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Now, Amy, how much have you managed to raise, or how much has Molly raised so far?
At the moment, the total stands at £2,300. So it'd be £1,150 for each charity. And then the hair itself obviously going to the Princesses Trust, which we put a little bit towards as well for them. So 3 charities are getting something out of it.
Absolutely wonderful. What a fantastic contribution. Where did you get the idea, Molly? What made you do it? Had you heard about other people doing it? Was it something you thought sounded like a good idea?
Yeah.
Yeah, she decided she wanted to do it, and then we had a friend pass away at the beginning of the year, So she said she wanted to cut it off and donate the money to a ward that helped look after her before, unfortunately, she passed away there. And then when she then collapsed in April and we found out that she had diabetes, we met the fun club and she said, can I give some to them to help them? So we said, why not? It'd been long enough. She'd been nagging long enough. So I definitely knew she wanted to do it. And that's where the ideas came from.
And Amy, were you surprised when Molly said she was going to do this, or was it kind of in keeping with the kind of girl Molly is?
She can be a bit impulsive, so I waited a bit and put her off a little bit longer just to make sure it's what she wanted to do. But yeah, she kept on going about it. So, and once she's made her mind up, it's definitely happening.
Well, I think it's absolutely fantastic. And furthermore, I think you really suit your hair, Molly. I think it's a good look. It must make, I'm sure it must make life a lot easier as well. So much easier to wash and get ready for going out.
Yeah.
Definitely. A lot of time saved in the morning.
Not so much combing and brushing. Now, tell us both, how can our viewers maybe help with donations? What should they do if they want to get involved?
If they go on to Just Giving, it's a crowdfunding page under Molly's Big Chop. So any more donations from there will then be split to everybody accordingly. So, but thank you to everybody who has donated so far. We started off looking for £100 for each, and I've just been blown away by how much, especially given how everything is at the moment with the energy crisis and the money for everybody and how tight it is. So thank you, and thank you for anybody else who does donate. It makes a huge difference for the charities.
Perfect. Molly and Amy, you've done as I hoped you would. You've made the evening and you've raised everyone's spirits. And Molly, especially to you, well done. What a fantastic gesture. You are definitely a Great Britain. And you can go ahead and tell everyone that I said so. All right. Thanks both. Thanks both. And take care.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Our again, I hope. Thanks for now. It's lovely. Isn't it lovely to hear these stories?
It's heartwarming. It's just gorgeous. Do you know?
I mean, what makes a wee girl, you know, a wee 7-year-old, you know, who's got her own things going on there, that thinks of doing something for other people.
I know, it's incredible.
Just wee 7.
And actually, to have the confidence to go long from short, because then you've got to.
That's a big thing for a little girl to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you know what's absolutely so adorable about that as well, because a lot of for the little princesses.
I think it's the Little Princess Trust. I could be wrong, but I think that's it.
The girls, you know, obviously with cancer and they lose their hair. The most popular is to have the long hair. You can imagine it. It's so that is just so special. You know, like little short wigs a lot of the time.
And a year and a half is quite a big chunk of 7 years of her life.
But I wonder if she'll do it again for the next and just keep doing that every 18 months. Just chop it up. She could be on a roll.
But there's something profoundly encouraging, I think, about hearing even just one story like that of one 7-year-old, someone so young who's already, for whatever reason and whatever outside influences, is looking beyond themselves and thinking about something that they could do.
But, you know, perhaps it's because she collapsed herself and she had this diabetes and it put it very much in perspective and it became much more personalised. So, therefore, she received the benefits of the care that she had. Not that she needed hair or anything like that, but the nursing care. So that started the kind of the path, you know, towards giving back.
Yes, and seeing other people in other circumstances.
Yes. Yeah.
And being reminded or learning for the first time.
What a sweet little face.
Just lovely, lovely. Have to go to a break again, and then we'll be speaking to the researchers who have made a major fossil discovery in Wales. See you in 2 or 3.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
And it's about standards and public life. No, I'll tell you what's hypocrisy, Narinda.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin.
We believe in the UK.
No bias, no censorship.
It just doesn't make sense to me. He wasn't doing his job as Chancellor.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here. You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and tune-in apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
I think I've seen probably quite enough of Matt Hancock to last me a lifetime.
I'll also be getting to know you better, travelling to find out what you think about the politicians who are fighting for your vote.
They've got to get this country back on track.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. only on GB News, on TV, radio and online.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today. I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked. Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
Welcome back to Neil Oliver Live. I've got some emails in from feedback from the first part of the show. You must be aware unions are communist-led. They're striking because Britain is struggling and they're taking advantage to further destroy Britain. Unfortunately, workers join the unions instead of standing up for Britain. The workers who join are anti-British. Striking for more money puts prices up, and so the circle of price rises grows. And that's from Ron Eccles. I'm screaming at my TV. You're missing the point and contradicting each other. The discussion you're having does not address the problem or present the solution. Let the corporations pay their share of taxes, which they avoid. And I have evidence to prove this. I found $2 billion in unpaid taxes from just 9 companies. Guys who are fighting each other and avoiding the real beast. That's from Reggie in Surrey. David Eldridge says, we need politicians who speak for the people instead of the pygmy rabble we have now. I quite like that.
Pygmy rabble.
The pygmy rabble. A
We
rabble
should
of
coin that term.
Is that the collective term? A pygmy rabble we have now. Please would Messrs Johnson, Farage, Tice and all others on the so-called right come together to form a party to challenge the status quo.
Johnson.
There we go. Very good. Now, changing the subject somewhat. Fossils discovered in Wales may be the first of their kind to be found outside of North America. That's exciting for people like us, isn't it, Emma?
Yes! Oh, yes.
Yes!
That's an exciting headline statement. Because there's something in our wiring.
Exciting.
in a rock, in a sheep field near the town of Llandrindod, Llandrindod Wells, the creatures in question were last up and about perhaps 460 million years ago. 460 million years ago.
That's unbelievable.
Try getting your head around that depth of time. Joining me now are Dr. Joe Botting and Dr. Lucy Muir, who made the discovery. Fantastic. Thanks for joining us. Very excited people here, I have to tell you. First of all, now, whichever one of you likes to take the lead on this one, what exactly have you found?
OK, well, we basically stumbled across the sort of thing that paleontologists dream of, but never really happens.
So fossils are everywhere, even of this sort of age. They're extremely common. But what we don't get is anything except shells and bones, the really hard bits, because everything else just rots away. So there are some weird places, little sort of flukes of nature around the world where you actually get the soft-bodied fossils preserved. And that's what we stumbled across actually during the lockdown. It just, a few miles from our house.
Are you holding something? Can you hold it up nearer to your face?
Yep. The first paper that we've just had published is on a thing like this, which is an extraordinary little creature called Opabinia. Ours is slightly different to this, and it goes back to the earliest arthropods. So things like insects and crabs and lobsters and so on that have jointed legs and a hard carapace. But this is before they've evolved that. So they're halfway between a worm and a proper arthropod.
Was that the size of the model that you were holding there? Was that the size of Opabinia in life?
Pretty much, yeah. They get to nearly that size. So about 10, 15 centimeters is the maximum. There it goes. One bit, yeah. But ours are somewhat smaller, aren't they?
The larger one is about 1.5 millimeters.
Oh, right.
No,
so
sorry,
there's a range of
centimetre and a half. Smaller one's about 3 millimeters. So they're quite small and a bit difficult to see.
Now, what kind of life?
Amazingly well preserved with all the features.
What kind of life did Opabinia have? Where did they live? How did they live?
It's a little bit difficult to tell because there's so few of them known. They had these tiny stubby little legs. That's a different fossil. But Opabinia had tiny stubby little legs and swimming flaps. So they were probably crawling around on the seafloor, maybe swimming a little bit, picking up small things with this amazing pincers and putting it into the mouth, which was under here. So it was probably eating very small things.
Right. Yeah, we think it might have been scavenging, possibly predating tiny little animals that were even smaller than it. But a lot of the time when we're interpreting the life habits of these, we're not exactly guessing because you can see how bits of it work and how they must have evolved for certain purposes. But there's always going to be surprises that we don't understand.
How significant is a discovery like this that you've made?
The first...
very, really, because there's lots of fossils known from the Cambrian period when animal life really got going. But for the Middle Ordovician, 460 million years ago, really this new deposit is about the only one that's got a variety of creatures.
And the other thing is that arthropods are the most diverse and not quite abundant, but one of the most abundant groups of animals on the planet today. And just understanding how they went from sort of worm-like ancestors with little stubby legs, or none at all, to something that we recognise as, a great big crunchy centipede or whatever, has all sorts of implications for understanding how ecology was evolving at the same time. They're just fascinating things, and it's a big gap in our knowledge. So these are not going to solve the whole story on their own, but they're a big piece of the jigsaw puzzle. And there are hardly any examples elsewhere.
And previously, the only examples of this species were in North America, is that right?
Not actually of this species. They only related things at all. So the only things with this nozzle coming out the front of the head are from one site in Canada called the Burgess Shale, which is one of the most celebrated fossil deposits in the world, and a single specimen from Utah, the same age.
And even in the Burgess Shale, there's only 40 specimens known out of more than a century of collecting. And some animals, they've got thousands of from there. So these things are really rare as fossils.
Yeah. So this is a new species. It has features that are a little bit different from Opabinia, the original one. And we named as Mierithyrin, which translates as bramble snout. It had spines on its proboscis.
And we've actually used the Welsh language for the name just to honour it being found in Wales.
Yeah.
Since you mentioned that, I think we should probably address the fact, where in the world was the territory we call Wales 460 million years ago?
Well, as you probably know, the continents have moved through time. So what's now Wales was a lot further south. It was actually in sort of subtropical latitudes about 460 million years ago. Part of a microcontinent called Avalonia, along with parts of Nova Scotia, rest of England and Wales, bits of France and Belgium. And it was actually a huge ocean, the Iapetus Ocean, between what's now Wales and what's now Scotland. And the rest of North America was joined onto Scotland. So it was really quite different. And this was before life got going on land, so the continents wouldn't have been green. They'd have been brown, the colour of just the rocks. And the Earth was a lot warmer. There weren't ice caps at the poles. We weren't in an ice age like we are now.
The other thing is that locally, the area we're working in was a volcanic island at this time. So you can imagine something a lot more like Indonesia than modern Wales.
Emma, it's impossible really to get your head around how impossibly different the world was when these creatures were around.
It's so exciting. I mean, I just want to say to them, congratulations. They must be so excited if we're this excited about it. And going back to the previous segment, we were talking about, how much we really know about our ancient history going back thousands of years. Well, going back this far, the world was a completely different place. And, the sorts of creatures that existed, the ones that we're aware of are so far beyond our, the sorts of things that we're familiar with as life forms now. But as you were saying to us in the break, Neil, that so much of our the fossil record, so much of our really truly ancient history is unknown to us, and so we really shouldn't have so much arrogance and hubris at being willing to assess new evidence, look at the facts, and build a picture of our history that is based on the evidence, yes, but still open to the possibilities that we don't really know everything, and we probably never will.
Yeah, I'm with Emma on that, Ingrid. It's that idea that every moment of every day there's the possibility of discovering something that upends our understanding of the past.
Upends it or introduces it to something we never even considered. Like this, I mean, I just absolutely love it. And as he rightly said, it's another part of the jigsaw. We will never get the full jigsaw. There will be always pieces missing. But how interesting. And then in that whole jigsaw puzzle, then you get to how the world was at that time, which is a brilliant question to ask. Do you know, it was underwater. Cumbria, as we know it, was underwater. And I just want to say this is for, the Greta Thunberg followers out there, just to get this in perspective. At that time, this is 488 million years ago, or let's say 500,000 years ago, for the most part, the Earth's climate was warm and wet, with sea levels rising as much as 1,970 feet in old-fashioned language, 600 metres in modern language, above those of today. So, this happens. We have natural, normal climatic changes. And there'll be more discoveries like this as the world shifts and it gets drier, and seabeds dry up, etc., etc. Let's just get on with it and just embrace what we're going to discover next.
Jo and Lucy, are there still more discoveries to be made in that sheep field? Is it the start of something?
Oh, there are lots more soft body fossils there, some that we've collected, a lot we know are still there to be found, and we're starting to write up more things, and we think we've got certain specific groups of worms that otherwise have no fossil record. So that's really quite exciting to work on.
Yeah, but our house is being taken over by little boxes of rocks at the moment, so there's an awful lot more to come.
I mean, is there any way? Do you get a sense sometimes, as people like yourselves who think about this all of the time, what percentage of that past have we touched upon, and what percentage might be still out there entirely unknown? To what extent are we still scratching it at the surface?
That's a really difficult one to answer because it varies through time as well. But when you get a fauna like this new one, then we've got a reasonable expectation that almost everything that was living there at that time has been fossilized. But it's one tiny little ecosystem. It's just, the bed is this thick. It's sort of 20 centimetre thick layer. And you get things like this popping up all over the place. And this whole entire fossil is about 1.5 millimetres long. And the bit sticking out the top with these sort of feathery bits is actually completely soft tissue. And you can see there's a lot of fine detail in there. But the problem is we have just extremely rare windows. You can't see what's happening even half a mile down the road, let alone in other countries. So probably it's a tiny percentage of everything that was living at this time that we know about.
Some fossil groups, things that had hard shells that preserved quite well, those we know a lot about their evolution. But many groups of worms that are entirely soft-bodied, we might only have a handful of fossils throughout the last 500 million years. So it really varies according to what group you're looking at. But overall, there's an awful lot more to discover.
It's very like the first sort of exploration of the deep sea, where there would be these voyages of discovery where they'd send out little dredge buckets and pull up a bucket full of deep sea mud and find some things in there that had never been seen before. But they had no idea how much else was missing at the time. And there you had the potential to have more and more expeditions and eventually build up quite a big picture. But still, there are new things being found even in the deep sea alive today. So what there is left to be found in the fossil world.
What precisely is the process by which, as you say, a tiny little, some millimetres long, soft-bodied animal becomes fossilised? What's the process?
It's something it's not fully understood. There's a lot of different ways of preserving soft-bodied organisms. These ones here are preserved in carbon films, as is the British shale. In other places, they're preserved in iron pyrite in fool's gold. So there's several different mechanisms. In general, it seems as though they have to be buried alive or very, very shortly after death in anoxic mud so they don't decay.
But then you've got to do something to knock out the anoxic bacteria and stop them from decaying it as well. And there are theories around how this happened in the Cambrian Burgess Shale and sort of just leading into the Ordovician. And it's something possibly to do with seawater chemistry, which led to a sort of very rapid sealing by minerals on the sea floor that stopped water circulating through it. So any bacteria that started to get to work rapidly poisoned themselves by using up all the oxygen or producing too many waste products. So it may be something like that, but the details of the chemistry are still elusive. There's a lot of people working on it, though.
It's nothing less than miraculous, though, isn't it, really, that something so ephemeral and from 460 million years ago, by whatever means, has been preserved for us to look at it today. That's nothing less than a miracle.
Yeah.
It is.
Sometimes when we're on field work, we'll suddenly stop and think we're the first humans ever to see these things. And that's just an amazing feeling. Yeah. Even if it's something we've seen dozens of before, it's still an amazing feeling.
And one of the things that we think we've got, but it's not published or anything yet, is actinophore comb jelly, which are probably the most delicate gelatinous things you can possibly imagine. They're beautiful in life. They've got sort of iridescent comb rows with sort of coloured bands running down the side of them. But there's just nothing to them. They're little wisps of jelly. And to preserve something like that, you basically need some sort of fluke of chemistry. And it was not thought that this window, the chemical window to preserve these things, survived into the Middle Ordovician. So it was just completely out of the blue that this turned up. And it's such a limited little deposit as well, just 20 centimetres in one tiny quarry.
Wonderful stuff. Doctors Joe Botting and Lucy Muir, thank you so much for your time. You've made 3 people in this studio at least very happy. Thank you. Thank you for that.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It is a wonder, isn't it? Something made of jelly, millimetres long, and it's there for us to see 460 million years later.
And then the chances of them finding it as well.
That's the thing, yes.
I know. Right, it's another break upon us, after which we'll be learning about the Chief Executive Officer sleep out, during which business people spend a night under the stars to raise money and awareness of homelessness. See you in 2 minutes.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512,
Virgin Media Channel 604,
Freesat Channel 216,
Freeview Channel 236,
and YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB+ radio,
with the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online. across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Monday to Thursday, 10 till 12, on TV, on radio and online.
Every Friday and Sunday night from 9, it's Mark Dolan Tonight.
We're on the same page again. There's something weird happening.
Let Ian finish. Don't be such a cranky.
That mini budget was the tip of the iceberg.
And on Saturday, my show just got bigger. From 8, it's Mark Dolan's Saturday Night In.
You can't govern a country if you can't speak.
Stop talking. My God, we reached the end. I've never been early in my life. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing. You see, amazing.
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
Hello, I'm Alastair Stewart, and I'd invite you to join me at noon on Saturdays and Sundays for Alastair Stewart and Friends. I've been in this business for over 40 years. Now, here at GB News, I've never been happier. I get to choose the big stories that really interest me. We hear what you have to say, and you hear what I have to say. I really hope you can join me, noon on Saturdays and Sundays.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Welcome back to Neil Oliver Live. My next guest this evening was part of a mass sleep out last week to raise awareness of homelessness. Henrik Muhle, MD of Fleming's Mayfair Hotel, was among 100 business leaders who bedded down outdoors at Lord's Cricket Ground in London, raising £130,000 for charity in the process. Henrik is with me now in the studio, and also joining us down the line is Bianca Robinson, CEO of the charity Sleep Out UK. Welcome to you both.
Yeah.
Thank you for being with us. Henrik, you've been paying attention to homelessness for a while. This is not new for you, is it?
No, I'm doing this since about 2.5 years. I started that just from the beginning of the lockdown.
And you take issue, don't you, with London Mayor Sadiq Khan in relation to charities like your own?
Yes. Well, look, we I have to raise money for our charity. So I'm just a volunteer. I'm just a normal volunteer. And we are every Friday across Charing Cross station. And we look after about 200 homeless and people in need. It's not just homeless, it's also people in need. And we see the line growing by the week at the moment. And unfortunately, we bring the food in with the van, and so we have to pay the concession charge, we have to pay the ULEZ, and it's cost us so far every year about, or last 12 months, £3,000. So we talk about CEO sleep out, and therefore I have to go and sleep outside to raise money so that, that we can operate.
Emma, you both, and Ingrid, you both drew in breath there. Does it come as a surprise that
More
Khan
than a
is
surprise.
charging a charity to feed the homeless?
Shock. More than a surprise, a shock. He's part of the problem, and you are actually helping with a solution, and he's making it hard. Oh, he's such a horrible little man. sorry, he really is. Said it.
I mean, I have to say, I'm not shocked that Sadiq Khan is doing something reprehensible.
It's shocking, though.
It is shocking, and just the sheer amount of money. I mean, that is money that could be spent on helping those homeless people.
Absolutely.
So it really is abominable. Sadiq Khan, if you're not that you'd be, paying much attention to this, but someone needs to make sure that City Hall are aware of this so that they can give you some kind of exemption, because it's outrageous.
And it's the only city in the world where you, as a soup kitchen, in Germany we call it a Tafel, actually charges. So we have to raise the money, and we're not the only one. I mean, we have so many charities, and we have to raise the money actually to operate, because it's not just the petrol, of course, but it's the congestion charge and the other bits and pieces.
So you're starting from below zero, basically. You've got to get to nothing before you can even start to help.
And of course now everybody saw it in the news. He's extending the zone, So even more charities will be difficult for even more charities to operate.
Wouldn't it be great if you going back to your monologue that people just thought, I'm not paying. I'm not paying the congestion charge. See what happens.
Bianca Robinson, what is the idea, tell me, behind having business leaders involved in this way? What does that generate in terms of interest and help for the objective?
Well, listen, what we say is if you're walking past somebody on your way to your business, that person who's rough sleeping could be a mirror to ourselves. That's what we try and say. It's about being a leader with purpose. And once you understand that that person's got the same, perhaps dreams, hopes, talents, desire for care and definitely shelter, then you can start to create that, unlock that empathy, unlock that understanding. And then in your business, like what Henrik does, you can actually take actions and take steps to strengthen the fabric of society and help minimize the problem. The powers that be aren't going to do it for us. It has to be people power. But I think business is where it's at. Business is where the powerful gather. The voice is heard by more than, just your average person. And when we bring them together, amazing things happen. And Neil, I can tell you, this is an exclusive for GB News. We have hit the £200,000 raised today at CEO Sleep Out London. No small thanks to Henrik here himself, who single-handedly raised £24,000.
Wow, Henrik.
Wow. Oh, congratulations. That's brilliant.
You speak so eloquently, Bianca, about what it means and why it's important and how much we all need to pay attention to the people that we would otherwise step over in the street. When you've got so much passion about the objective, how much does what Henrik was talking about with the congestion charge, how much does that affect Sleep Out UK? How much of a handicap is it for you?
Yeah, it's very much a handicap, and I do think it's something he's got wrong. It needs to go on the agenda. It needs to be repurposed, because we could do so much good with that extra cash. I mean, we fund grassroots charities. That's what we do. We're a grant-giving umbrella charity. We raise, it's like a Robin Hood. We raise from people who've got contacts, who've got money, and we redistribute it, in this case, to 10 grassroots charities across London. Every single one of those charities needs our unrestricted funding so that they can keep doing what they do, supporting more people than ever. I mean, as this cost of living starts to bite, we're going to see mums with kids with nowhere to go presenting as homeless. The councils don't have adequate accommodation for these people. It's unfit, unsecure. I mean, we had somebody last week, the coroner's inquest on the little boy that died from living in an accommodation that was thick with mould. That is not a unique story. It's not happening. It's not acceptable. And actually, we've got to gather this groundswell of support to change that. That money that you're talking about, every pound makes a massive difference. So yes, absolutely, that money should be repurposed.
This situation in which you find yourselves, courtesy of Sadiq Khan, is it new? Is it Sadiq Khan that has created the situation, or does it predate him that charities are having to pay to operate within the City of London?
Listen, I'm not the person to ask about that. I live in the northeast of England. I pay the ULEZ charge when I come into London, which is very frequently. I absolutely think it's not right that a charity should have to pay it. However, I think there are bigger forces in play than Sadiq Khan himself. Obviously, this is the global effort to tackle climate crisis. So for my part, I think he's doing it to meet our Paris Agreement targets. He's doing it to meet the UN Sustainable Development Goals. He's doing it to try and bring us into line with what many, many countries around globally are doing. But when it comes to charities actually trying to pick up the pieces of a society that's clearly broken, Neil, when we have over a fifth of the population living in poverty already before this crisis is hitting, and 270,000 households homeless in the UK, which we've normalised, by the way, and it's not normal at all. It should not be accepted as normal. We need all the help we can get to try and support people who need our help.
Henrik, those figures, those statistics are shaming, really, in a country that considers itself to be a first world country and has been a first world country. But as I say, this situation, as I mentioned with Bianca, is it always been the case that charities like your own has had to pay to operate in London? Or is it a noose that's tightening year by year?
It's maybe now coming out. Look, I'm just a volunteer at that charity, you know, so I come every Friday myself, and we look after, normally I would say 120, 150 people in need. It only comes now that the queue is much longer. For example, yesterday evening we had over 200. And what Bianca actually just said, it's true. It's the first time in those 2.5 years I have seen mothers with children. And it's heartbreaking if you're looking after the queue and you have actually mothers with children coming. And people would say, oh, you know, do they need the food? Do they actually need this? Yes, because if you could queue for 2 hours in that cold weather, and you need. And I think now, where we have to raise more money to have more food, so we, you know, to stock up our food, the congestion charge, the payments, of course, whatever the charity spends, suddenly comes alight. And in there, the last 12 months is £3,000. And £3,000 at the moment, if we cook the 200 meals, is 6,000 warm meals. And we can't forget that most people who come to our charity, and there are so many others, but to come to our charity is the only warm meal per week. And I've started with the charity even something different to get around the congestion charge a little bit. I've done a bike project. So we cook in my hotel. We cook every Wednesday. We cook for about 50 families and people in need, warm food. And I have some really young bikers, and they have a backpack on, and then off they go from our kitchen and spread the food out. Because that's, of course, there is no congestion charge involved. But that's so small. I mean, it's you know, it's 50 people's only warm food in the week.
Can I ask a question? Can't they come to your hotel then instead?
Because they're so far out. I mean, we're starting at 6 o'clock with the bikes, and the last meal is delivered at 22:30, so 10:30 p.m. You know, so it goes quite out in London.
So Charing Cross is quite central to everyone.
Yes, correct, and that's where there's so many charities set up, and every charity, there's every evening of the week is one charity or two charities who help people in need and give food out, and we are only there every Friday.
Bianca, just listening to Henrik talk there, it does feel as though, as you say, on the one hand, the country is taking all of these steps to improve a future for people as yet unborn in many cases, and at the same time we're literally stepping over the poor and the homelessness of today on the way to that unknown future and those as yet non-existent people. That seems to be terribly short-sighted and cruel.
100%, Neil. And you know what I think, you know, my mission really is to get people at the top echelons of business to kind of start thinking that they are responsible for their patch in society. You know, it's about the stewardship, and we've got to look after each other when times are tough. Yes, we've got to do whatever we can to address the climate warming that we're facing. However, we can't hang our people out to dry. And, you know, it's absolutely criminal that there's not situations and there's not steps, there's not a process, there's not systems, and the systems that we have are broken. At every CEO Sleep Out event, and I do these all over the country, we have people who've lived through homelessness and overcome and tell their story. And the the thing you hear time and time again is that they've gone through a system, one of the systems that we've created for people to prevent them from falling through the safety net, and they've fallen through for whatever reason, because they're not set up with any compassion, with any care, with any follow-up, with any joined up thinking or communication between agencies. And it starts with kids in care quite often, and that leads to breakdown of family life and homelessness. And you know, Kerry Douglas, who's one of our lived experience ambassadors, found herself where Henrik gives out his meals in Charing Cross at the age of 13. She proceeded to live there for the following 11 years. So I'm trying to bring awareness to this. I'm trying to bring awareness to our broken systems. I'm trying to say to business leaders, look, step up where the powers that be have failed. We can do something at least. And in your business, you can at least do one thing, whether it's give somebody with, somebody from a hard to reach community a leg up, an apprenticeship, an internship, whether it's if you can pay the living wage, pay it. What can you do to help people put food on the table and give them some more security so they don't fall through these cracks?
Bianca Robinson, thank you so much for your time and your insight this evening. And Henrik, thank you for your efforts. It's moving and humbling to listen to what you do. So thank you both.
Thank you.
After the break, a change of tone, and it's almost the season for some festive mince pies, and myself and my panel are going to be treated to some live in the studio. See you soon.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store. You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Dubes & Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Dubes & Kerr.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
Welcome back. Now, I know it's still November, but with the year we've all been having, we need the lift of Christmas as soon as possible. I think we're all agreed. My family will have the trees up within the next couple of weeks at the latest. And all of those glad tidings just can't come soon enough, frankly. With that in mind, I'm joined in the studio now by the dream team behind Blondie's Kitchen, purveyors of specialist cookie dough mince pies, among many other delights. Hello, both.
Hello.
I'm not sure how this is working with the... There we go, there we are. Chelsea and Christelle, thank you so much for coming in. How long has Blondie's Kitchen been going, and how did you... Tell me the backstory.
So we have been in business since 2016. We started from Christelle's parents' kitchen, making cookies, and then we started flogging our cookies out of Old Street Station. And from there, Selfridges found us actually on social media.
Wow.
Which was all a bit of a whirlwind. We couldn't believe
That's quite cool.
It was really cool. It was like a dream come true. And from there, we went in on a pop-up for about 4 weeks, selling all of our cookie-based products. And on the back of being the most successful pop-up in the history of the food hall, they invited us back in permanently.
Wow.
The most successful pop-up in
the
history.
food hall, yeah, and that was in 2000.
So what is
crazy.
What
it was
is
just us, though.
Now, I need you to blow your own trumpet here, but why do you think you attracted the attention of Selfridges, and why are you the fastest-growing pop-up? What's the magic?
I think it's also... OK, so a cookie is a very simple product, but it's about the brand behind it. And it was just us baking it. People followed our story of we were in the kitchen all day, we were selling, we were in the kitchen all night, selling all day. So it was like they followed us from start to finish. So that we had the social media behind us. And the product tastes absolutely delicious.
Which you should tell us. Come on, we're going to eat these for real. Talk us through some of it.
To try one.
Yeah, absolutely. So what have we got here?
We've got our mince pie cookie cups. We invented these back in 2018.
Great.
And they are basically the best mince pie you will ever eat because instead of being encased in pastry, we encase ours in cookie dough.
Well, I just helped myself.
Absolutely.
Are all of these the same?
They're all the same.
OK, right.
Our mincemeat filling is actually, it contains no alcohol, so they're kid-friendly as well. And eating them straight up like you're doing is perfect. Equally, when they're warm as well, with cream or custard or ice cream.
Oh, come on.
Chewy, they're a little bit crunchy.
You've got to share this experience.
They're delicious, aren't they?
My eldest son, Archie, has always been mad for mince pies.
Really? Oh, my God.
Absolutely born to consume mince pies. And these, I have to say, are a very,
This is
very
amazing.
fine.
They're delicious. They really are. I'm not just saying it.
No, I'm not just
Always
saying it
full
either.
of butter.
Usually for me, it's all about the inside bit. But in this, the outside bit is usually...
Well, I don't like
the
mince
best.
pies because I don't like the pastry.
Wow,
so this
that
is
exactly what people say. A lot
Wow.
of people message us saying, do you know what, I absolutely hate mince pies, but I love yours. There's something for everyone with this.
It's like a treacly tart.
Yes, that's
that's what it is.
It is, it's like a treacle tart.
And the cookie is spiced as well with something.
It is, yeah. Well, it's the filling that's spiced.
So when it bakes, it like
infuses
the
it
steam in the oven.
Exactly.
Fuses the flavour.
Wow.
And it's a vanilla cookie.
You told us it started with just the two of you.
Yes.
Now it's how many people?
Now
in
we've
Blondie's
got
Kitchen?
22 in our team. We have our concession in Selfridges Food Hall, and we've also got a micro shop in Covent Garden. We've also got our cookie van in Westfield in Stratford.
You're geniuses. How many of these will you have to make between now and Christmas?
Oh.
Over about 200,000.
Yeah.
100,000.
You're joking.
Thousands. No.
And do you have a kitchen now somewhere
We still hand make every single mince pie. They are lovingly handmade. We don't use machinery.
This is why they look homemade, because they are.
So at Blondie's Kitchen, what we do is, so we use little moulds and we use our hands, we mould the shape and then we put the filling in, we put the top on, we put them in the oven.
200,000 times.
200,000. Honestly, but every single mince pie has love put into every single one.
I have to. What did you do before?
So I was actually a cookery writer for BBC Good Food.
Okay.
And
Christelle
I used
was
to
a chef.
be a chef, so I used to work in restaurants. And Chelsea messaged me, being like, "Do you want to do something together?" And I was
Did you
like,
know each other before, or just only through your
We knew
professions?
of each other.
Of each other, but we didn't know each other.
Not well. I was a bit scared of her. I knew of her. And I was like,
Absolutely.
I'm
going to have to wind this up. You've definitely got the recipe for success. This is absolutely fantastic. But I'm afraid, Chelsea and Christelle, Emma and Ingrid, that's all from me on Neil Oliver Live. Thanks as always to Emma and Ingrid for your endlessly wonderful contributions. I'll see you next week. Next up, it's the brilliant Mark Dolan tonight. Have a great evening.
Looking ahead to tomorrow's weather, the UK will be drier for many, though still some rain across the southeast and far northwest. Let's take a look at the details. A blustery start to Sunday across northern Scotland. Sunshine showers, but the wind blowing these through quickly. Gales in exposed locations. Temperatures around 5 to 9 degrees to start the day. Sunshine to greet many across Northern Ireland on Sunday morning, but showers will quickly move into western areas, still fairly blustery, especially around the coast. A dry start to the day across northern England, skies brightening slowly as the overnight cloud and rain edges away, winds much lighter too. A breezy Sunday morning across North Wales and the Liverpool Bay area. Although most places will be dry, the skies will still be a little grey before brightening up later. Temperatures around 8 Celsius. A cloudy start for the Midlands, with any overnight rain soon clearing. Skies will dry and brighten from the northwest as the morning progresses. Winds much lighter and temperatures around 11 Celsius. A dull, grey and damp morning for East Anglia. The risk of some light rain at times, especially towards the coast where it will still be on the breezy side. Further rains expected across southern England through the morning, especially for central and eastern areas, brightening up in the far west, mild with temperatures around 12 or 13 Celsius. Heading towards lunchtime, the rain will continue across the southeast of England, brighter elsewhere, with blustery showers in the northwest. And that's how the weather is shaping up during tomorrow morning.
My name's Tom Harwood, and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on